Chapter 28. 4 weeks later, Milo stood in the doorway of Casa de Piven, surveying his former kingdom like a director returning to an old set. The storage closet had undergone a transformation worthy of a studio makeover montage. Harrington's team had gutted and rebuilt it into something that actually resembled an office. Not that Milo needed it anymore. He had a slicked-out penthouse on Hollywood Boulevard now, courtesy of the studio. The street might be worn around the edges, but it was still the boulevard where dreams were made. Or at least, where they went to sign development deals, including his. Milo's had a brand new desk. A new leather couch sat where Poppy's desk once sat. They'd run into each other on the lot about 10 days ago. She was on the phone working for another director, snapping her gum and muttering something about Plot 9. She smiled when she saw him, exclaimed Milo, like they were old friends, and then was on her way. He didn't blame her for the sabotage. Not now. She was just doing her job. A neat stack of scripts awaited him on his desk, the top one emblazoned with the kind of title that suggested someone had fed an AI nothing but protein shakes and testosterone. Storm of Steel, 3. Tempest of Titanium. The sort of movie where dialogue was just something that happened between explosions. Milo picked up the script and fanned it open, scanning the words, drinking in the familiar prose. It was the best script ever written. A smile bloomed on his face. He tucked it under his arm, then strode out of his office. His gait had changed. Gone was the nervous shuffle of an aspiring auteur. In its place, a confident swagger that screamed, "Hollywood's about to get a plot twist it never saw coming." The studio lot pulsed with the organised chaos of a big-budget production in full swing. He navigated through a maze of trailers, each one its own ecosystem of fragile egos and contract riders. He sidestepped cables thick enough to anchor the Titanic, ducked under a passing green screen that loomed like a radioactive monolith, and narrowly avoided collision with a PA cradling what appeared to be either an alien appendage or a very ambitious craft services order. The airstream stood where it always had. The aroma of freshly ground beans cut through the miasma of hairspray, fake fog, and desperation. Ava spotted him and her smile disappeared. They hadn't spoken since the water bottle incident. And as soon as Deadline announced he was stepping in to direct Storm of Steel, she'd avoided him completely. But not today, and today he would be seen. He smiled. "Morning, Ava." Ava's eyebrows arched. "Well, if it isn't Hollywood's newest sellout." Milo winced. "How goes Storm of Steel? Revenge of the Scrap Heap? Is it everything you thought it would be?" Milo wrinkled his nose. "Did you know there are 17 different shades of explosion?" Ava's hands performed their coffee-making ballet. "Fascinating. I'm sure that'll really elevate its artistic integrity." She punctuated her words with the hiss of steaming milk. "You squeeze any dialogue in between the car chases and gratuitous flex scenes." "It's a regular Citizen Kane," Milo said, then lowered his voice. "But listen, I need an AD, someone who can see past the pyrotechnics to the heart of a story. Interested?" Ava paused, her hand hovering over the espresso machine. "Me? I'd rather direct traffic on the 405 at rush hour, which in LA is all day." Milo nodded. "But before you turn down the role of a lifetime, why not take a peek at what you'll be missing?" He held out the script like a peace offering. Ava curled her lip. "Do I have to?" "Please." Ava sighed, then took the script, holding it as if the pages might spontaneously combust. "All right, Fincher. Let's see what literary gems you've— Wait a minute." Her eyes widened, darting between the script and Milo's increasingly smug face. Then she leaned out the Airstream window and lowered her voice. "This isn't Storm of Steel 3, Milo. This is the Golden Path, you sneaky son of a Hitchcock. A very wise, very blue-haired person once told me that Hollywood runs on illusion." Milo shrugged. "So, I figured why not use their own magic tricks against them? You're making the Golden Path, disguised as a mindless action flick?" Her voice was a mix of awe and barely contained laughter. "You are either brilliant or completely insane." In this town, they're practically synonyms, he said. What do you say? Ready to be my partner in cinematic crime? A slow smile spread across Ava's face. Are you sure? You're risking everything. Milo eyed her. Not everything. Ava plucked a closed sign from beneath the counter and slapped it on the counter. I'm in. Her eyes sparkled with the kind of mischief that made studio insurance adjusters wake up in cold sweats. But I've got a few ideas of my own. We're going to turn this golden path into a yellow brick road that'll have the CP checking their projection room for flying monkeys. Milo grinned. This was it. The dream team. The dynamic duo ready to rewrite Hollywood's rules. The kind of partnership that could either revolutionize cinema or get them both blacklisted in every studio from Burbank to Budapest. Probably both. Bring it on, he said. Let's give them a third act they'll never see coming and change the world with our story. Fade in. Chapter 29. Catherine's office hummed with an energy usually reserved for Oscar night, that electric tension between triumph and catastrophe that kept the film industry spinning. The view from the Hollywood sign's O seemed particularly spectacular today. She had finally called him. And here he was, looking less like Jimmy Stewart and more like every screenwriter's third draft personified, exhausted, fraying at the edges, but somehow still maintaining that peculiar Hollywood optimism that bordered on delusion. He sat in front of her desk, fingers drumming an anxious beat on the arm of his chair. It's official, James said. Storm of Steel 3 has commenced shooting. Milo Piven reported to set bright and early, looking every inch the Hollywood sellout. Excellent! Catherine's smile could have added colour to black and white. Looks like our director has finally learned to play by the rules. You've done an impeccable job, Catherine, James said, his tone tinged with admiration, and perhaps just a hint of fear. I couldn't have chosen a more capable successor to lead the cinema protectorate. I'll be announcing my retirement tonight. Catherine bowed. I'm honoured. James smiled and stood. Well, I'll let you get back to it. She watched him go, then walked over and closed the door behind him. Her phone rang, a jaunty excerpt from Singin' in the Rain. She retraced her steps and picked it up. Darling. Mom, Ava said, everything going ahead as scheduled? Everything's right on track. Storm of Steel 3 is shaping up to be quite the spectacle. Wonderful. Satisfaction oozed from Catherine's voice like butter on hot popcorn. Mother and daughter orchestrating the greatest plot twist in cinema history. I knew I could count on you to keep the train on the tracks, darling. Keep up the good work. You mean your good work? Catherine smiled. Getting plot 147 to screen had almost been the death of her. A knock on the door. Talk to you later, darling. Mum. Catherine hung up. Come in. Grant entered her office, looking like he'd just gone 10 rounds with a particularly aggressive screenplay. The newest batch of CP graduates are assembled and awaiting your pearls of wisdom. Catherine nodded, straightening her jacket. Excellent. Grant narrowed his eyes, studying the office. Have you done something different in here? Catherine paused, her hand on the doorknob. Fresh coat of paint, new ergonomic chairs, even upgraded the coffee machine. It's about time the cinema protectorate stepped into the modern age, don't you think? And then she walked out, following her own golden path toward a future only she could see. Chapter 30. Milo drove his BMW down Hollywood Boulevard, the street that had seen a million dreams born and just as many buried. Storm of Steel was getting the kind of press that made studio executives pop champagne at lunch. A flash of red caught his eye. Familiar, yet impossible. He slammed the brakes, earning a chorus of honks from behind. There on the sidewalk stood Felix, as real as any illusion Hollywood had ever produced, complete with whiskey bottle in paw, not a handler in sight. The fox tipped his head in acknowledgement, raised his bottle in a toast, and disappeared into the crowd of tourists and street performers. Milo checked the time. He was meeting Ava for dinner, and some stories, the best ones, were better left untold. at least for now. He smiled and hit the gas. After all, in Hollywood, the real magic happens between action and cut.